Attention outlet shoppers. Right now, save 50 to 70% off everything for the family at Gap Factory stores and online. With shorts from $14.99 and tees from $6.99. And save 50 to 70% off everything at Banana Republic Factory stores and online. With an extra 50% off clearance and dresses for women starting at $19.99. Hurry! Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, Robert, are you there? What's up, buddy? Where are you? Oh, boy. We've got trouble in River City, Jack. This is Damn You Hollywood. I hope you folks can hear me.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Hi, there we go.
Sorry, I mentioned this before a while ago on another show I do. I have a new headset, and the microphone mutes itself seemingly at random, so my sincere apologies.
Nice.
All right.
I always enjoy a good randomly muting microphone. That makes life interesting.
Yeah, it does. All right, let me start over then. Hi, everybody. This is Damn You Hollywood. I'm Robert Winfree. He's Mark. He's back from the brink of death last week. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good. Can I take a few minutes to do some housekeeping real quick?
Sure.
Okay. One, I want to apologize to you last week for bailing out on you in the last second. Please know that it was not because I didn't want to review the movie. I didn't have a whole lot to say about it, which I'll get to in a second. But it really was. I got home. I took an hour nap. And then I sat on the couch and I watched The Flash and literally moaned due to a fever and a headache and all kinds of problems. And so that people don't get annoyed, I will move ahead with this. But suffice it to say, I probably, if I had had a lot to say about it, probably could have pulled myself together for about 20 minutes to do at least that much of a review and be like, all right, I got to go. You're on your own for the rest of the show. But between having nothing to say and feeling like I was going to vomit any second now, it was best that I go directly to sleep, which is exactly what happened. But I don't like bailing out on people at the last second. I felt shitty about it, so I wanted to apologize to you. Now, that's not to say that I know you couldn't handle it. You are the Joey Styles of the WWE. Not that you're punching out bully cowboys in their nose, but you can host a show by yourself without being a problem. You have those kinds of skills. That being said, this is still something that I plan and schedule and drag you into, sometimes kicking and screaming. So I just wanted to let you know that I just wanted to let you know that A, I appreciate you, and B, thank you for not giving me a hard time about that, because I really was not great last week. The second thing is, and I want to take just a minute to talk about King Arthur. Had I been on the show, what I would have said was, it felt like Dungeons and Dragons, the movie.
It wasn't that bad.
No, I don't mean like the actual movie. I mean,
okay.
Like it just not that movie with one of the Wayans brothers and whatnot. No, it was more like, another way of phrasing this would have been, this felt like Warner Brothers' forced attempt to try to come up with another Lord of the Rings franchise and failing. It was scraping the bottom of the barrel to come up with yet another, knights in shining armor, swords and sorcerers kind of a franchise. And, this one just had the stink of Guy Ritchie all over it. Other than that, I didn't have anything else really to say. It was an action movie, and it was imminently forgettable the moment I walked out of it. I heard your review. I agreed with a lot of it. But that's really all I had to say. And other than I'm waiting for it to appear on the Wikipedia list of biggest box office bombs. $175 million to shoot that thing. What were you thinking, Warner Brothers? What were you thinking?
I imagine that one had just finally crossed the threshold. I think I mentioned this last week. It was in production when the executives at Warner Brothers got changed out. There was that big, change in management and leadership, and things got reviewed and changed, and they just already sunk a significant portion of money into it, so they just did it again. They just plowed forward. It was rewritten a couple of times. They did reshoots for a few things after. They even cut it. I found out what the original ending actually entailed, and I'm very grateful they cut it. Because it was,
all right.
It was even dumber.
That was it. I wanted to at least give a small note on what I thought of the film. We scheduled it, and now I've talked about it. I am ready to turn the page, like Bob Seger once said, and move on with our next summer blockbuster. Oi. Hit it.
Tonight we are reviewing Alien Covenant.
Oh, yeah, we are.
I'm really unsure. I mean, I know what I want to say about it, but this movie was both everything I expected and very, very different. This is a very weird kind of dichotomy there.
Yeah.
Again, you and I were both excited for this after the first couple of trailers. I'm curious for you. I know kind of why I was excited. In large part, I was kind of excited because, and I will be the only guy, not only on this show, but on this whole network who probably says this, I actually like Prometheus. So I was somewhat interested in seeing where things kind of went from there. And
well, since you brought that up, no, I didn't like Prometheus the first time I saw it. But now I've gone back, I've watched a bunch of videos kind of explaining it after the fact. After watching Alien Covenant and seeing a bunch of these videos and really thinking about the movie, I think I allowed myself to fall into that mode of, well, it wasn't, I did exactly what I yell about on this show with other people, which is it wasn't what I wanted, so it wasn't good. And truthfully, I didn't get a lot of it. Like, the philosophical elements were fine, and I got those just fine. But I think I wanted a strict Alien prequel, and what I got was something else. And there was just some of it where I literally didn't understand what was happening on screen. You know, the engineer creating life on Earth by drinking the black goo and then dissolving into the waterfall. Yeah, didn't get that. Didn't understand why the engineer flips out at the end, rips off David's head, and tries to kill everybody. Didn't understand what was happening, why the engineer was all pissed off, which there's still no rational explanation for why it hated humanity. But
they were trying to destroy humanity because they felt that they weren't worth saving. They had already planned. I mean, they discussed this a bit. They had already planned on sending the pathogen that winds up becoming the xenomorphs to Earth before they had their accident on that planet that short-circuited everything.
Why David is throwing black goo into shots of whiskey. Didn't understand what was happening there. And I absolutely, and this is a personal thing. This is absolutely a personal thing. Couldn't stand, absolutely hated the abortion sequence. Where she cuts the squid out of her. Just hated it. Just hated everything about it. But upon reflection and upon thinking about Prometheus, I would be remiss to say it's a bad movie. So you are not alone, Robert Winfree, as much as you like to think you are. You are not alone. It is a well-crafted movie.
Alrighty. And anyway, that brings us into Alien Covenant. Now, again, one of the things I've kind of been slowly trying to introduce here deals with expectations before we actually discuss the film proper. So, Mark, again, the first couple of trailers, you and I were both very excited. Were you anticipating a return to, Alien, the original, in terms of, style and execution for this film? Is that kind of what got you up in the morning as far as this movie goes?
I think my expectation was, one, we would get more answers, the kinds of questions I had after Prometheus. I expected there to be more exposition, sort of explaining what the hell happened in that movie. I expected us to be a little bit closer to Alien proper in terms of answers, who the space jockey was. It's clearly an engineer. How his ship got loaded up with eggs, where did the eggs come from, that sort of thing. But I think just from a craft and expectation level, I expected the movie to be scary as fuck. I really expected, with Ridley Scott back at the helm, I expected the movie to get that gritty sense of claustrophobic fear back in the movie. I expected to have nightmares when it was over. I fully went into this expecting, because I'm a huge fan of this franchise, as I talked about last night on Source Material. And I've read books, I've read comics, I've watched all the movies. Aliens today, by James Cameron, remains today one of my favorite movies of all time. But I expected it to take us all the way back to the Ridley Scott Alien and really give a sense of fear to the audience. And we'll talk about what really happened in just a few minutes.
All right. As for this movie, we open with a prologue, The Birth of David, Michael Fassbender's android from Prometheus. He talks with his creator, Guy Pearce, who's reprising his role from Prometheus. He was the very old Mr. Wayland in Prometheus, who shows up at the very end only to be violently murdered, which is fine. And they talk a little bit about, art, creation. And they touch on some philosophical things. We leap forward to the spaceship Covenant, which is a colony ship sending a bunch of humans to a planet that they have vetted for colonization and habitation, et cetera, et cetera. The android for the Covenant, Walter, also played by Michael Fassbender, while recharging their solar-powered batteries, gets hit by a neutrino burst, which actually would have been more damaging than it showed in the film necessarily, but give it a pass. The crew reawakens for the most part. The captain is incinerated in his cryopod, which I said last week, if I got to see James Franco die without uttering a single line of dialogue in this movie, I'd consider my money well spent. And I got that at least, so not a fan of James Franco. Just not a fan. Don't boo which actors I gravitate towards. I'm not even like, there's not even the appearance of that being an objective thing. That is just me. That is purely me. Anyway, they're damaged from the neutrino blast. They lose a couple of crew members. There's some tension because the new guy that replaces the captain is less suited for command. There's our Ellen, who I'm just going to call Ellen for the sake of this view, because that's all she is, and I want to yell about that later. Who was married to James Franco, which I just have to question your decision-making capabilities at that point. Should you even be in a command position if that's the life choices you make? Sorry, enough about James Franco. I promise I'll be done. Anyway, as they're attempting some, repairs, reassessments of various critical systems, structural things, they discover a planet very close by, broadcasting what sounds roughly like John Denver's Country Roads, a great song. And they come to find out that the planet is habitable, and they decide to take a detour, also influenced by the fact that, no, we don't really want to go back into cryosleep in the near future. We'll be... Sorry, just 1 second.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah, sure.
About the signal. Was it made clear that the signal was a bait to get any human passerbys to come to the planet because David needed biological material to work with? Or was it really Shaw? Or what was the point of the signal? Because one of my complaints about the movie is that it really should have been David dangling a worm out there to try to hook some humans, because that's what he needed to continue his experimentation. And if that's not the case, I'm not entirely certain what the point of the signal was.
Yeah, they never clarified it to the best of my knowledge. I mean, okay. It could have been the same thing as the neutrino burst, just a random coincidence. Because really, if that burst hits them in a slightly different location, they don't pick up the signal at all. It's just kind of random happenstance in some respects. At least that's what I took away from it. I agree it would have been better if he was, baiting people. Like, come on.
Right. Well, I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but the strength of this movie is when you realize it's not about the history of the xenomorphs, and it's not about the crew. It's about David. It's a weird movie in that sense that your protagonist is actually your antagonist. But this is about David wrestling with his inability to, with his, not inability, but his refusal to serve humanity and his subsequent disgust with the human race. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Please continue.
Spit it out. Thank you. Sorry, I'm half multitasking here.
Anyway, so they playing World of Warcraft. What's going on here?
I have fact or fiction responses due.
Oh, I'm fighting you? God damn.
Yeah.
Oh, you probably. Okay, I wrote mine half asleep, so you win. Let's move on.
I haven't written mine yet, so let's hold off on that assessment. As soon as we're done here, I'll flesh those out and get them sent. I thought I had sent them earlier. Apparently I didn't, and I lost my responses somewhere in the ether.
Well, do you need a minute to recap?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I got this. Once you start really going after I can find some time to do that. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so they land on this planet looking for the signal, and I have a real gripe with a structural part of, because, again, the chick playing Ellen, which is not her name, but...
Bargain Basement Ripley?
Yeah, her. She says, no, we shouldn't stop here. This is a bad idea. Look, space is regulated by maritime law. Okay, let's get this. You have to understand that first. The cardinal rule of maritime law is the preservation of life at sea. If there is a legitimate belief that signal comes from a living person stranded, there is an ethical and possibly even a legal obligation to look into it.
And then you have to get everybody to Dunkirk.
Let's not do that. We'll deal with that when we get to the show, all right?
Where are we going? Dunkirk. I won't go back there. I'll die. Sorry, go on.
The English Channel isn't even international water. I think there's actually a pretty clear delineation line between France and England as far as who has the rights to it. But anyway.
Move this along, please.
Anyway, you're the one who brought up Dunkirk.
I did, and it made me laugh. Now let's move on.
So they land, they send an expedition force. The bulk of the ship and the crew and a few of the crew members left behind to pilot it are stuck in orbit because the atmosphere has constant and very violent storms that they can't land through. On the planet, they discovered the crashed ship that had taken off at the end of Prometheus. They trigger a few spores that wind up becoming pseudo-xenomorphs. They're slightly
They're
different.
Called neomorphs. Their technical name is neomorphs.
Triggering the neomorphs, which kill a few people. One of the ships blows up while trying to fight them off. There's a degree of interpersonal conflict between, no, that's my wife down there. I'm happy to risk the entire ship to do so, and no, you dumb bastard, you can't actually do that. Which becomes a bit of a thing, as it does in all of these movies. The group on the ground is rescued by David, who has long hair, which is weird because androids don't grow hair. It should be static. Anyway, David rescues them, takes them to his hideout, where bad things start happening. He and Walter share some interesting discussions. They try to make contact with the ship for evacuation. The neomorph shows up, kills a couple of other people. Billy Crudup then kills it. He's then lured into the basement where there are eggs with facehuggers. Facehugger gets him. Xenomorph winds up popping out of his chest. Predictable fight with the Xenomorph. There's a couple of nice fights. There's a really interesting fight scene between Walter and David because Walter cannot approve of David's choices in life, as David talks a lot about how he has taken the pathogen that the engineers used to wipe out life they didn't approve of creating, or that they didn't like the direction it had taken, which is, again, what they were launching at Earth in Prometheus.
Do you think the implication is that the engineers were coming to wipe out humanity because we voted for Trump?
Mark, I love you like a brother, but if you bring that up again, I'm going to fly to Florida and stab you repeatedly.
Not the face, not the face.
I don't need to hit your face.
Moving right along.
There are reviews of this movie that actually use that bit of logic, by the way, and I have prepared my aneurysm accordingly.
That's right. I sent that to you.
And I wish that had been the only one. I really do. Anyway, there's a minor question mark about whether or not Walter or David survives their encounter. It's left unknown for a significant portion of the movie. A couple of guys from the ship have taken a second improvised landing craft down to the surface to evac those who are left alive. They kill the real xenomorph, the one that came out of Billy Crudup. They kill it during a weird scene. They kill it during
Protomorph.
It's a xenomorph. That's all it is.
There's neomorphs. There's xenomorphs. There's protomorphs. There's the deacon. There's the caninomorph, dogmorph. There's the Ripley morphs. There's all these. There are various kinds of aliens. Is what the point that I'm trying to make. The one that pops out of, I want to say the one that pops out of both Crudup and Oram is his character's name, and then the one that pops out of Lope at the very end of the movie are both. I want to say those are both protomorphs.
I was unable to distinguish between protomorphs and xenomorphs, so the others, there's a visual distinction between them that I can get behind.
Yeah,
they're
all
like
like pale and white.
Anyway, they kill one of the xenomorphs, which is just what I'm calling it now, so deal with it. They get back to the ship. Turns out one of their crewmen had been, impregnated by a facehugger before they left. Xenomorph kills the other two, leaving us with just Danny McBride and Katherine Waterston. They lure it outside, blow it out into space, because even the vacuum of space... Because the vacuum of space will stop even the mighty xenomorph. Then they crush it with a crane. No, that's the other one they crush. They just blow that one out into space after running it over with a giant terraforming truck. And then some of the science in that sequence doesn't actually work that way, I seem to recall, but I'll leave that. They go back into cryosleep, returning their course to their original planet, and then they reveal that, no, it's not Walter who survived, it's actually David. David introduces a few facehuggers in stasis into the embryo chamber so they'll be safe until he lands. And now he's got... How many colonists did they say there were on that ship?
2,000.
And now he's got, a few of them died, I think, at one point. But, now he's got some 2,000 humanoids to play with during the further 6.5 years, I think they said, or 7 years, until they land on Origai 6. And we're just left with the horror of him walking into the room filled with colonists in cryostasis to the beautiful strains of Wagner's The Gods Entering Valhalla, which is a beautiful piece of music.
Mm-hmm.
Setting up the inevitable sequel to finish off the Prometheus trilogy. All right. Where do we want to start with this thing?
Let me first say, overall, I thought the movie was okay. I didn't think it was bad. I wasn't bored. It did not lack for entertainment value. Not as scary as I thought it was going to be. It's not even as gross as I thought it would be. There were only 2 times where, with my weak constitution, I had to kind of avert my eyes. But I expected it to be more gross. And I certainly expected it to be more scary and suspenseful. For me, it lacked in both departments. But as a piece of entertainment for 2 hours and 2 minutes, I enjoyed the story such as it was. My biggest problem with Alien Covenant isn't what it is, but its potential that was left on the table. For example, as I said before, you have this signal going out into space, and as I said, this movie was about David. It starts with David. That's the whole point of that first scene when he's talking to Guy Pearce. And I wish I was a fish. I wish that the movie had ended with them trying to get off the planet with the protomorph running around on that skiff, and then catching it in the crane and crushing it and doing what it does with it and all this other stuff. And that had been the end. And then they went up into space, and there had been some time with Tennessee and Bargain Basement Ripley, mourning their significant others and all of that, and sort of just taking a deep breath when it was all over, and then getting into stasis, and then that whole sequence would have been fine. But everything leading up to that point should have been David and his House of Horrors, which it starts to go down that way, and then it backs away, and then it goes back again, and then it's just like it never truly commits to the idea of, which is what it should have been. This should have been David luring humans to paradise so that he could experiment on them and continue to try to develop, what he was going for was the perfect being, which is the xenomorphs. Acid blood, biomechanical being, the murder beast, as we like to call it. That was his goal. And I wish that all the running from the aliens and what should have happened is they should have landed, and instead of an introduction of the black goo via aerosol by stepping on the spores, cut that out entirely. Just have them be attacked by something he created and let loose on the planet to drive them to him. That should have been the thing. It's like, I'm going to, with my experimentations, I'm going to create these things that aren't nearly as deadly as the xenomorphs, but, monsters in their own right. Maybe it could look like a centipede or something, and have it, destroy the one ship. That sequence is fine. You can still do that sequence, more or less, where the one idiot girl shoots the tanks and blows up the thing. But it really just should have been her and a monster, and same bit. And then she blows it up. She dies. They can't get off the planet. That forces them to stay there. Now they're running around, and there's monsters chasing them. David saves them, brings them back to, Dracula's palace, and that's when and this is when, instead of revealing at the beginning, have it be a realization. Bargain basement Ripley or somebody find his sketches and realize, holy shit, we've been had. This android brought us down here, to feed us basically to his monsters. And, it's like, that's right. I was going to experiment on you the whole time. And he can twirl his alien mustache. And then again, a lot of the sequences you can still keep. You can still keep the flute sequence. You can still keep the David on David fight, because then you need that to set up the big stupid reveal at the end of the movie. But that's what it should have been, because the movie as it is, like I said, never fully commits to one good idea. Instead, it tries to juggle a couple of half-baked ideas, and the movie just kind of goes around in concentric circles until the end. And my biggest complaint about the movie is that last battle with the xenomorph on the ship felt entirely tacked on. That felt like they had a finished script that ends the way that I said it ended, with the skiff battle and the crane. And they were like, okay, and they showed it to a studio exec, and the studio exec's like, well, no, look, Alien fans know one thing. They want bargain basement Ripley being chased on a ship by a xenomorph. You got to throw that in the movie too. And so it's like, oh God, we've already done this. Let's do it again, because we gotta have that final sequence. It's like, no, you've already done it. You did it with the crane, and it was awesome. I really did enjoy that second to last sequence. I thought that was really inventive, with the car falling off the thing and, being tied to it. It was kind of like Drax being dragged along by the ship in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It was that sort of a thing. I thought catching the alien in the crane was great, and that was all you needed. But instead, there's this entire tacked-on sequence that just feels like they're going through the motions for fan service, to check the box that the studio executive insisted they check. In terms of craft and performances, I mean, no one gives a bad performance, but where I agree with a lot of the rotten reviews is I didn't have a lot of investment into the characters. Everyone just seems like they're lunch for the murder beast, and that's all there is to them. I know that the entire first half an hour of the movie is you trying to get used to these people, but I couldn't even tell half the time who was married to who until much later on in the movie. So, everyone gives an adequate performance, serviceable performance, Bargain Basement Ripley is exactly that. It was like, we need a Ripley character. You'll do. Here, put this underwear on. And she does a fine enough job with it. That's all there is to it. There's nothing. It seems like everything that makes Ellen Ripley awesome, was missing from this movie. And I don't want to go off too much on a tangent, but if you look at, like, Alien and Alien, you spend a lot of time with Ripley. And, she's the lone survivor of the Nostromo. And in the second movie, no one's even listening to her, and she's trying to tell the Colonial Marines, like, hey, you better listen to me. I've got experience with this thing. And they're like, fuck off, bitch. You don't know nothing. And then, then she comes across Newt, and there's this whole, like, subplot with Ripley's daughter, which you don't know about because I cut it from the movie. But, she's, like, parenting the sterile child, and then the aliens get the child, and, and then that's what, when it isn't just that she says, get away from her, you bitch, and everyone goes, yay, and throws their pants in the air. There was an entire build-up to it. You really got a sense of who Ripley was, what she's about. Over the course of 2 movies, you got very attached to her, and she's not just fighting aliens. She was fighting Burke. She was fighting the Marines to a degree. They weren't listening to her. Even I think on the Nostromo, there were some difficulties with her and the crew. So none of that is here in this movie. I have no idea why I'm supposed to cheer for Daniels, other than, who I keep calling Bargain Basement Ripley, other than that's the character that they set her up as. It's entirely unearned. So in summation, the movie is serviceable. It could have been so much better. I've demonstrated how already. And it looks great. I enjoyed the look of the movie. The problem is it looked a little too much like Prometheus. Next time around, they need to go to a new planet. they need to go to a planet that doesn't look like Middle Earth, for one thing. Stop shooting in Australia, or if you're going to shoot in Australia, dress it up some. Because I honestly thought it was the same planet as the one they went to in Prometheus again. I didn't realize it was the engineer planet. But I will say this: it did, despite all of its flaws, I am excited for the next one to see the further adventures of David and his desire to kill off humanity. So we'll see what the next chapter brings us.
Yeah, I agree with you about how to make this movie better. There's a real fundamental misunderstanding about what made Ellen Ripley so awesome that seems to go on in this movie. If you look at Prometheus, again, the 2 leads in that are both female characters who are very different both from each other and from Ellen. And I feel like that one almost got snuck in, under the radar because the movie's called Prometheus. And so studio executives didn't pay attention to, their checklist. Now we have a movie that actually has Alien in the title, and, well, we must have Ellen.
Right.
Because there's none of the time spent with her as a character. There's even people, I don't know how many people remember this necessarily, but Ellen didn't start off as a badass.
No.
It took a really long period of time for that character to, mature and become the, ass kicker that she became in some of the later entries into the franchise, which, may or may not be good movies.
But even in the James Cameron movie, she falls into the role of a badass hero because she's forced into it. The Xenomorphs have killed almost all of the Marines. And the only reason why she got as badass as she got was because she was going after Newt. She would not let Newt die.
Yeah, which again is kind of the point. Like, it took a lot of time to get her to that position. And now we're having someone go from, I don't want to say weepy because, again, her husband died horribly. There's a degree of emotionality that's supposed to come with that. But going from more on the subdued side to, okay, here's this killing machine. I'm going to clip myself to the side of this, cargo bay, and we're going to have it out, you and me. Without any of the time and details that go between, that are supposed to happen on the journey from point A to point B. Let me say there's nothing in between them.
I'm all for action chicks. I'm all for a Black Widow movie. I'm all for Wonder Woman. But 4 out of 5 of the last comics I have been, like Supergirl, Power Girl, Mockingbird, all chicks. Okay. The only male comic I've bought recently was the Elseworld Superman story, Red Sun. I am all for action chicks. However, action chicks just for the sake of having an action chick without any real setup just leaves you with a video game character, and not even a well-developed one. It just is. It's just that's your avatar you're playing. It might as well have been fucking Tomb Raider, and that's what she amounts to. I mean, her job on the ship is she's the terraforming expert. So she's basically a scientist, yet she's like running around with guns, and I'm like, I don't understand what it is she's supposed to be, other than studios going, listen, we don't want to piss the women off, okay? And we want women to come see this thing, so action chick.
Well, again, and it's an alien movie. You must have a Ripley clone. Right.
I'm actually surprised they didn't have her running around on the planet in her underwear.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the spoof of this thing, and that's what you're gonna see. Is just someone running around in the fucking lingerie and a machine gun.
Yeah, she's just a very poorly written character as far as that goes, which is the main issue here. It's not the actress's fault. She's a perfectly competent actor. This is just a poorly written character. I mean, the star, essentially, of these movies has been Michael Fassbender. And that's kind of the way they're structured. Or at least you can tell that's where the writing's head is at. And whoever's writing these, that's where their head is at.
Mm-hmm.
Because he gets the most interesting stuff to do.
And he's sort of the mystique of these movies. I got to calling the last 3 X-Men movies the Mystique trilogy. This is the David trilogy they're working on. Well, so far it's a duology. We'll see how many movies they actually come up with.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot in this movie that's really good. It looks great. The first couple of times you see the neomorphs, not so much, but there's a few scenes with them that are quite good, visually. I don't recall having any major complaints about the quality of the visual effects. I found something, and I wish I could articulate it, but I found something kind of profoundly beautiful in David teaching Walter to play the flute. And I'm not sure what exactly it was.
I laughed out loud like an idiot. And I admittedly like a moron when David kissed David.
Okay, no, that was stupid. Don't get me wrong, that was stupid.
I'm sitting in the theater, a grown-ass man, and I see him kiss David. I'm like, I thought it was amusing.
But the scene before that where he's getting him to play the flute, I don't know what it was about it that really kind of stuck in my head, but something about it did.
I'll do the fingering.
You're trying to make this weird, and it's not going to work.
You blow, I'll finger. Let's go.
Well, I mean, since you want to bring that up, all right, let's go ahead and hash out the very an obvious sub-issue to the totality of this franchise, which is deeply and profoundly, in many respects, sexual.
Mm-hmm.
There's an underlying conflict, again, across all of these movies that is, and I hate to say it this way because it overly simplifies it, but and I wish I had a better analogy. I really do, because I imagine there is a better one to be had. But throughout all of these, there's a conflict between, again, as best I can phrase it, masculine and feminine, which is not to say men and women, all right? That is not what I'm trying to say here. Because you frequently have, both men and women on either side of the equation, except for, 3, which is, let's not talk about 3. 3 makes me sad. Of course, so does Resurrection, because reasons. I mean, look, to anyone who worships at the altar of Whedon, I mean, the man has done some very good things. Doesn't make him infallible, and I have documented evidence here. But there is that undertone throughout all of these movies. Some of it is visual, and that is in no small part due to, Geiger's fascination with phallic imagery. But it pervades a lot of these stories, especially the good ones. And it does so here as well. You have, the desire for, although weirdly enough, in some slightly reversed roles in cases. I mean, you have David with the desire for creation, which is traditionally associated with the feminine role of things. Because, men can't create life. I mean, we're necessary for the process, but only in certain respects, especially with contemporary technology. Versus Walter, who is much more the protector, which, again, is traditionally more of a masculine role. And yet, in other aspects of this franchise throughout the years, more of the masculine energy, so to speak, and I really hate using that word because of all the stupid connotations various cultural subsets have given it, of, wanting to take, conquer, control, exploit the xenomorphs for profit, versus everyone with a brain going, no, this is a bad idea, you bunch of morons. So you get a lot, and you get some of that here in this movie as well. Again, a few of the elements. I mean, there's a perfectly valid argument that I've interpreted that backwards, and David's desire for creation and procreation is reflective of the masculine need to constantly spread its seed and explore, whereas Walter is more of the, again, protector, which can equally just as well be, a motherly role. And if you want to, again, I believe you can validly interpret that in either way. And which is an interesting discussion. I tend to believe I'm right in the first set, because there's also the bit where David is quoting the Ozymandias, the bit from that poem, and Walter corrects him at one point because he's attributing it. David is attributing that bit to Lord Byron, who was a phenomenal talent when it came to writing. But I believe while Ozymandias was published under Byron's name, I believe it's more correctly attributed to being actually written by Mary Shelley, who was a companion of Byron's. They shacked up more than once. I mean, the people around that time were weird. I mean, in their own ways, ours were pretty weird. Ours are weird too. So again, just kind of furthering the discussion as far as that goes between masculine and feminine. And again, I really wish I had a better word or lexicon to really reach into to describe those two, broadly speaking, sets of motivations and whatnot. Because I as soon as you say it's masculine and feminine, people on either side of the debate are not actually going to pay attention to what you're saying. They're going to see buzzwords and start yelling and misinterpreting and so on and so forth. So to everyone who have already turned off with that, I apologize profusely. That's about all I had. I don't know. Mark, was there anything else you wanted to touch on, or have I put you to sleep?
No. That's really. I mean, like I said, I already talked about how I would have made the movie better. It needs to be streamlined, and it needed to be David and his House of Horrors. It needed to be a slow reveal that he brought them there for the purposes of kidnapping them, experimenting on them, killing them. the scene where where he arrived on Paradise. There's an internet there's a video that shows Shaw repairing his head and going into hypersleep and everything. I don't know why that wasn't just put in the damn movie. So much time is wasted on a lot of nonsense. Like, why don't you leave in the stuff that actually tells the story? I would have liked to have seen David's motivation for killing the engineers a bit more fleshed out. I also wish that instead of the black goo turning everyone to ash on the engineer planet, I wish that when he dropped the black goo on everybody, instead it had the effect of what the aerosol black substance had on the two humans, in the sense of, I kind of wish visually there had been a scene of xenomorphs popping out of the engineers all over the place. And again, it didn't have to be, when I go back to, like, he should have created something to, like, corral the humans, to him. That would have been a great setup. Because what should have happened there was, what pops out of all the engineers are neomorphs. And now the planet's full of fucking neomorphs that are running around trying to find meat to eat. And, some of them end up dead.
Or just have, like, only a few of them left by this point because of how many years it's been. They've, devoured each other. The ecosystem couldn't handle them.
Right. But
I honestly think that if you're going to do his, place as a house of horrors, I know what the finale of that has to be.
Yes.
You need a scene where he has used the genetic material from Shaw to create an alien queen, but the queen has died and is, this quasi-rotting corpse, and that's where he got the eggs from. And these are all that's left of her. That's why I'm taking care of them, because he talks about their relationship a bit.
I forgot to mention that the scene where where Orem walks in and there's a bunch of eggs, that was missing one critical element, and that was there should have been a queen.
And it really should have been at this point, a failed experiment in many respects. He couldn't provide for it. Whatever whatever excuse you want to make, but there has to be a dead queen, and he's guarding these eggs at this point.
But what would have been great is that when he tricks Orem into looking into the egg, which was really stupid, by the way, but I'm willing to accept it. I'll allow it. So when Orem looks into the egg, what should have popped out of Orem should have been a new queen. And that's what should have been chasing them around David's House of Horrors. It was really, get them, my queen. Something along those lines. But, hope you're listening, Hollywood. All right.
Giving the stuff away for free, Mark. We've got to stop doing it.
Oh, speaking of free, here comes the money, baby.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar.
All right. Alien Covenant won the weekend, burly. It's already making a decent amount of money at a $97 million budget, so they shot it for pretty cheap. As these, summer blockbuster, sci-fi, fantasy, horror epics go. So far, it's made $121 million. Like I said, it was number one over the weekend, just barely beating out Guardians of the Galaxy. It had as of this writing, it was a $39 million take for the domestic, 81 foreign. It needs to get to about 200 million plus. My prediction is we'll probably see about somewhere in the 300 million, 250 to 350, somewhere in there between 250 and 350 before I think it finally settles down. It's got some pretty heady competition over the next couple of weeks. You've got Pirates coming out this weekend. You've got Wonder Woman the following weekend, and I'm not going to go see it. Winfree's not going to go see it. But a part of the dark universe, The Mummy, the weekend after that. then I believe Cars, and then Transformers. So I think over its entire run, like I said, it makes it to between 25 and 35 million, 250 rather, to 350 million. But I don't think it's going to do much more than that. There's just too much competition, and I don't think the movie is good enough, or there's enough buzz on the movie to warrant a much bigger take than that. As far as where we stand worldwide, well, for domestic, number one is still Beauty and the Beast. Number two is still Guardians. Beauty and the Beast domestically has almost a $500 million take. Guardians crossed into $300 million. Then Logan. Then The Fate of the Furious. Then the Lego Batman movie, which is now out on Blu-ray. Then Get Out. Then Kong Skull Island. Then The Boss Baby. Split and 50 Shades Darker, rounding out your top 10. And actually, all 10 of those are over the 100 million mark domestically. Everything else is domestically is less than 100 million. As far as worldwide, and these are the numbers that I always enjoy, Beauty and the Beast is still number one with over $1 billion. Fate of the Furious has made its billion. Both 1,200 million plus. Guardians of the Galaxy will probably be there in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I would say by the time we get to the middle of June, it'll have already crossed into the billions. Logan has settled comfortably at 600 million. Kong Skull Island has settled at 565. The Boss Baby, on a budget of I don't even know what, because it doesn't say on Box Office Mojo. But
I'll
holy
find
crap,
out.
man. The Boss Baby had a domestic take of 166 and a foreign take of 302 million for a grand total of 469 million.
The Boss Baby's budget was $125 million.
Well, good for the Boss Baby.
I disagree.
But Fox may have only hit a single with this Alien movie, but man, they had a home run with the Boss Baby. Good for your animation department. Anyway, 50 Shades Darker comes in at number 7. Your Name, which is a foreign movie, at number 8. Fucking Triple X, The Return of Xander Cage, at number 9, and The Great Wall at number 10. By the way, at number 11 is Resident Evil, the final chapter. Did you happen to see the article that says they're rebooting the Resident Evil franchise?
I had heard that, yeah.
Why?
I can't imagine.
I know
Okay, no. I can tell
original-
you why. I can tell you exactly why.
Okay.
Well, for one thing, they squeezed, 9 movies out of this property?
Something like that.
All of which I seem to recall were profitable. Hollywood will not put money into anything that is not a reboot, a sequel, a spin-off, or an adaptation of an established franchise. And here we get to check off at least 2 of those boxes. So, yay. And that's about it.
I need to posit a theory that was proposed to me by my mother-in-law. Noted expert in movies. Not really. But my mother-in-law is of the firm belief, and there's no convincing her otherwise, that next weekend we have a head-to-head competition between Dwayne Johnson's Baywatch and Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Now, I've already said Dead Men Tell No Tales is going to win the weekend. I've actually posited that due to the strength of some of the earlier movies, this one might actually cross into the billions. Though one never knows. It's already getting shit reviews on across Rotten Tomatoes.
Those films are review-proof. People who like them don't give a crap what the reviewers think.
Right. it's the same as Transformers. But even, if you look at the strength of those movies, yeah, some of them have done very, very well. Some of them, not as well as the others. But her theory was that the number one movie next weekend will actually be Baywatch because foreign audiences will flock to something that had David Hasselhoff in it. That's her theory. That because
she's aware that David Hasselhoff is a cameo in that movie, right?
It doesn't matter. David Hasselhoff is associated with Baywatch. Therefore, Baywatch will be the number one movie in the world next weekend. This is what she told me.
All right. That's that's something.
That's a theory. It's a theory. I wanted to put it out there.
That was the flat Earth theory.
I feel like, if this is what she believes, we should at least entertain the idea. I still don't think it's true. I think Pirates will be number one. I think Pirates will be number one. I think Aliens will be number two, and Baywatch will be number three next weekend. Guardians will be 4, and so on and so forth.
I think Alien will fall further than that.
You think so? You don't think it'll maintain it? You don't think it'll maintain a high spot?
I don't think it'll maintain number 2.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to guess, we're gonna get Pirates, Guardians, Baywatch, Alien.
Okay. Well, we shall certainly see. As far as where that leaves us with Alien, in the world currently, it's ranked at number 23 between Power Rangers, which has stalled at about $140 million, and Buddies in India. Wow, Smurfs made more money than Ghost in the Shell.
I could have told you that would happen.
But beating out all of those is a dog's purpose at number 17. As far as where we stand right now, going into the summer, we're 3 weeks in now. Here is where we stand market share-wise for 2017. Disney leads, as it always does.
And will by the end of the year. All hail the mouse overlord.
Well, that's right. With 22.8% of the market share, according to Box Office Mojo. Universal at number 2. Yeah, but it's on Fox at number 3. And Warner Brothers at number 4. Now, Warner Brothers may actually start to pull ahead. If Wonder Woman does really, really well, and then Justice League does well later on in the year, that's potentially those two have the potential to push Warner Brothers ahead of possibly Fox, maybe even Universal, if they can get them, if they can actually get themselves over $1 billion at least one of their pictures. I'm trying to think.
I doubt
what else.
They'll both do well. I have no doubt about that, but I struggle seeing either of those crossing the $1 billion mark. I mean, Justice League might surprise me as far as that goes, but
I'm trying to see what Warner Brothers, other than Wonder Woman and Justice League, what else Wonder Woman is coming out this year that might give them a leg up. That's a write down. I know Paramount has Transformers coming out, so they've got a chance to stay pretty high on the list. Right now they're at number 6, but like their biggest success was in January with Triple X. Still irritated we didn't review that.
I'm not.
In my crawl, Robert Winfree. Of course. All right. I don't think there's anything left to talk about in terms of money. Like I said, I think Aliens will be profitable. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah, they budgeted it reasonably. I mean, $97 million is actually on the lower side for what's supposed to be a big summer blockbuster. Nowadays, those are always $100 million or more, it seems. So.
Yep. Which goes to show you, if you have an appropriately budgeted movie, even if it doesn't rock people's socks, you'll still have a profitable movie. You just, these things can't all be $300 million pictures. All right, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, hit me.
J.R. Kennard at Pop Matters. Adding a convoluted mythology about the xenomorph origins doesn't equate to scares, excitement, or entertainment value. There's simply no reason for this film to exist, regardless of its fleeting visual pleasures. This ship has definitely sailed.
Okay, how many of the things that we regularly complain about every week did this guy just tick off?
A bunch. Almost the entire list.
All right. Adding a complicated mythology doesn't add scares. Did it occur to you that maybe they're not trying to scare you so much with this movie? I'm not sure how much I'd call this a horror movie to begin with. It doesn't add entertainment value. Again, according to your sensibilities.
Can I add that I don't know how bright this person is, but I didn't get the sense that it was a convoluted mythology. David created the xenomorph.
Really not.
It's that simple. David took the black substance and with it experimented and eventually creates the xenomorphs. Ta-da! It's not convoluted. Like,
I mean, there's a thing about David's character arc that should have been explored, but that's a wholly different point from claiming that this is convoluted. No. A guy created in the image of man decides he wants to surpass his creator as he views, humanity as unworthy of him, looks to create something new and winds up at, this. I mean, how is that complicated for you?
Was the subtext of David pour the tea lost on that many people? Because
apparently,
I got it immediately. Because I swear to God, I thought David was going to hit him with the tea kettle. Like, eek, pour the tea, David. Oh boy, you're about to get that down your pants.
And then he quotes Milton right before he offs Walter to further cement the position.
Yeah. Tom
I'm sorry,
Crowley
do we just
of
not?
film.
You people have you not read classical literature? Do you not understand the references being made throughout the totality of this, usually between Walter and David, that give you all the insight? Are these literary allusions just going right over your head?
Look, I'm not going to say I got them all either. It's been a while since I've read a lot of classic literature. Lately, I'm steeped in comic books. That's what I'm reading. But I know what I'm watching on screen. David poured the tea in a slightly irritated voice. Got it. That was all I needed to see to know where this was headed. Again, professional film critics. Apparently, you were all asleep in either your English lit classes or your film classes, whichever one. Tom Crowley, Film Ireland magazine. Covenant is at its best when the horror aspects of the film come to the fore. The problem is that one has to be patient while the scriptwriters amble down thematic blind alleys. Yes, God forbid in a horror movie that they actually take some time to deal with thematic issues of religion and such.
Just, do you not understand what really scares people about horror movies? I mean, this is one of those things I have to yell about every now and then. Why is it that so many people, and apparently this includes a significant number of film reviewers, don't seem to understand that slasher movies are only scary if you care one iota about the people that are being carved up? Right? There's a reason most Stephen King stories, the pure horror ones, mind you, take time before they actually get to revealing horrible things. So you actually care when something happens. Now, again, there are issues with this script in particular, but taking your time with something is not a bad thing at all.
Once again, Dog Day Afternoon. Bored the shit out of me. 2 stars.
Hey, since we're on the topic, how about the original Alien? Just out of curiosity, what would you people think about that one if it were released today? Because they sure take their time with that movie, and it's deliberate and effective.
2 stars. Scott's latest, Alan Cerny at comingsoon.net. Scott's latest, with a bit of creative editing and rewrites, would have made a fascinating Blade Runner film. Unfortunately, it makes for a terrible Alien film.
That's not accurate at all. Did you even see Blade Runner? Do you not understand the nature of the conflict in Blade Runner? I mean, that's about all I can come up with here. If you try to distill Blade Runner down to the point about, there's a danger with AI, or, the wrestle with, the creator and the created, sure, there's some surface similarities, but the context and the motivations and everything that makes them good movies is completely different. Blade Runner is about man trying to undo a Mr. Howard desperately trying not to die. Because despite the fact that he's synthetic, he wants to live. And the universality of things that appeal about, what it means to be alive, things of that nature. And in some cases questioning elements of existence. And, for Ridley Scott's to be believed, and based on the new Blade Runner movie, he was inaccurate, the nature of Decker's existence.
Michael Rothman of Consequence of Sound. After a long, storied career of engaging, thought-provoking films, Ridley Scott has succumbed to the gutless predictability that Pauline Kael initially envisioned, and Alien Covenant is precisely the carnival fare she saw in the 1979 original.
I don't know. I mean, maybe you're the type of person who thinks that Westworld is the height of existential crises, leading you to this particular conclusion, but no, A, it's not, and B, there's still thought-provoking elements here. I mean, I'd even argue that several things he's done haven't fallen within the thought-provoking. I mean, Gladiator's not especially thought-provoking.
That was the first thought I had.
It's an adaptation of Macbeth. It's a darn good one, mind you, but that's not the type of movie you... I'd actually argue that the director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven is thought-provoking in the right way, but nobody saw that because the studio butchered the movie.
Yeah, I saw Kingdom of Heaven in theaters, and it was fine. Again, see Mike Boss on King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. Josh,
find the director's cut for Kingdom of Heaven. It's almost a different film.
Okay, I've heard that about Daredevil too. So, Josh,
no, not as much.
Rarely do I comment on characters' hairstyles, but the decision to give Waterston a hybrid bowl cut for his Valiant Bob is one of the most ill-advised things this film does. And in a film that treats its audience like morons, that is saying something.
Okay, A, who cares about the hairstyles? What point are you trying to make here? I mean, did you not see No Country for Old Men? Because Javier Bardem had one of the worst haircuts in cinematic history. It didn't matter one bit.
He has the Wallowitz look from The Big Bang Theory.
I don't know who that is, and I don't care.
Yes, sir.
Second of all, apparently if this individual had actually read some of the other reviews, he couldn't possibly have arrived at the conclusion that this film treats its viewers like morons because so many people just missed the point.
Yeah.
Again, this is not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it does actually expect you to pay attention.
I was going to say, this film may be treating people like morons, and even at that, people are still having difficulty with it. People are still wrestling with this thing. Mike Ryan of Uproxx. What started out as a simple, let's run away from this scary thing. Okay, no one was running away from shit in the first one, but it was just popping out of the shadows. It is now so bogged down in its own mythology of why these scary things exist, it's almost unrecognizable. No, it's actually the exact opposite of that. the biggest criticism I've seen of this movie is that it's the same movie over and over and over and over and over again. There's nothing unrecognizable about it. It's still people running away from aliens and being murderized.
Yeah. The fact that he's trying to tell a different story in this is one of those things that, you and I yell about all the time. What were you expecting? And could you actually get past what you were expecting to examine what you have rather than just, it wasn't what I expected, therefore it sucks. And that's a tough thing to get over. It's happened to me more than once. But if you're a professional, Mark and I do this on our own free time. If someone's paying me for this, and by the way, please do. Look, Mark and I are happy to read copy. If you want to sponsor this show, I would love it. Mark would love it. Happy to do so. But the point being, if I was being paid, there's a degree of I have to look past my own expectations that needs to be brought into this, as opposed to just, well, I wanted X, I got Y, boo. I wanted Randy Orton, I got Jinder Mahal. I'm changing the channel, which you should anyway, but that's a whole other subject.
Donald Clark of the Irish Times. If you find your mind wandering during a chestburster sequence, then you know the novelty has worn off. Yes, if you find your mind wandering during any part of this movie, you should probably find a new job besides film reviewer.
Yeah, basically. Look, what the average person, what the average film goer experiences and does, and how they experience it is fundamentally different from how you're supposed to experience it as a reviewer. That's why you're a reviewer. That's why you're paid for this, because you experience it differently. If your mind's wandering doing your job, and bear in mind, when you're actively doing your job, my mind's wandered plenty of times when I've been employed. If you're standing behind a cash register at 11:30 at night, and you've got another half hour before you can actually close up and just no one's in the store, sure, your mind wanders. When you're actually looking at stimulus you're supposed to report on and give analysis of, and you can't keep your mind on track, maybe you need a different profession. That's stupid.
Simon Morado of the Student Edge. The Alien franchise, overthinking it since '92.
You want to screen this caller while I yell about that one?
Sure.
All right. What do you think constitutes overthinking here, my friend? Applying thought? Have we reached a point where applying thought processes and looking at things has now constitutes overthinking? I mean, the first, which one are they referencing with that 92-bit? Probably Alien 3, which, to be fair, is a mess for a variety of reasons not related to anything intentional by the filmmaker. They're trying to tell a specific story as they go forward, and the fact that it's not just a rehash of what we've already seen ad nauseum does not mean they're overthinking it necessarily. The fact that Ridley Scott wants to explore some higher concepts and whatnot doesn't mean he's overthinking it. Now, would a Ridley Scott series about ancient astronauts be better suited in a different shell than an Alien film? Yeah, I'll buy that. I would buy that. It's not wholly necessary to tell the stories he's trying to tell within the Alien universe, so to speak. But because he's choosing to do so does not mean he's overthinking the product. It just means it's different from what you expected. This is not, again, it's not a rehash of Alien. Consequently, I don't know, people seem to think that means we've arrived at a position where everything is being overthought and overwrought. I don't know, I did go on maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe I'm maybe I've overanalyzed this a bit and have arrived at the, I mean, I did talk for a bit about the archetypal masculine and feminine in this in this film franchise and their constant clashing. But just no. I mean, have we reached a stage of anti-intellectualism where applying thought at all means you're overthinking things? Or are you just trying to say that to sound smart? Well, this is being overthought. And no one's going to challenge you on that because no one's necessarily sure what you mean by saying it was overthought. And you don't, which also means you don't have to cite examples because everyone's going to smile and nod or repeat a soundbite back to you. But such is the state of our world at the moment. And Mark is still doing that. Let me bring up the old tomato meter. Because there was one that Mark sent me that I really wanted to yell about. Sorry if that was... I may have misspoke earlier when talking about Ozymandias. I don't think that was Mary Shelley who wrote it. I think I've been corrected as far as that goes. So my apologies. I may have been wrong about that. It was Percy Shelley, who I think was her brother or her husband. I can't remember. I'll double check. Let's see here. Okay, this one bothers me. Jason Bailey of Flavor Wire. Director Ridley Scott clearly wants to give us more than just an alien movie, but his film is best when it aims for that simple goal. See, I would actually disagree in the sense that I believe the points in this movie where they try to scare you are some of the weaker ones because it's set up so ineffectually. I mean, that whole scene, and I'll give you a specific example because I'm good like that. The whole sequence where the xenomorph enters the ship and kills that couple in the shower is devoid of any sort of menace or interest because you don't care about the characters. If you don't care about them, then why do you care when they're violently murdered? I mean, it's not a bad setup as far as that goes, but just no.
Joe Gross
right.
of Austin American Statesman. It takes Covenant an ungodly amount of time to get to this point. A good half hour could have been carved out of this thing, making for a much leaner, meaner, meatbag exploding horror flick. Oh, God forbid we get to know the characters, even badly written ones. Once again, let's cut out anything having to do with making this a movie and just have it be a sequence of murders happening for 2 hours.
Which ultimately defeats the purpose of why you care about people who are murdered for 2 hours. I mean, look, there were editing and writing issues with this movie. I mean, we talked about that. But the notion that there's just a half hour in this movie that you can carve out is wrong. This isn't Age of Extinction, all right? Where, again, at least, even if not a full half hour of that movie, there's at least 10 minutes. At least. That could be removed. This
Roger
isn't...
Moore of...
Go ahead.
Sorry. Roger Moore of Movie Nation. In space, no one can hear you giggle.
Really? You proud of that line, are you?
So I listened to the show last week. Very good job once again. But you're like, oh, who are some of the guys that I tend to read, even if, no matter what they're saying about the movie, I tend to read them anyway. Well, here's one of them. Here's one of my favorites. Old man Joel Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal. I love this guy, and no matter what he says, I will always read his stuff. The good news is that David is back in a way that doubles down on his potential and gives Mr. Fassbender lots to do. And the bad news, this new Alien prequel is mostly a gore fest, which may be great news for gluttons of the genre. You know, this is, again, a guy who, you know, is just like, there's too much blood on the screen. Why can't everything be the lobster? It wasn't. Yeah, look, and I'm saying this as somebody who's not into gore. There wasn't nearly enough gore in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, hang on, because there's the scene with the chick's head floating in the water, which is aesthetically lovely, but not exactly gory. There's the one neomorph that pops out of the guy's back, which is up there. And should be.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of, blood. Again, I don't think you understand what gore means, sir. I'm really not sure you understand the reference point for saying a movie is gory. Because there are movies that are bloody but not gory.
I need a picture of Joe Morgenstern where Abe Simpson used to be. Under the headline says "Old Man Shakes the Fixed Cloud."
Old man yells at film.
Julian Roman of MovieWeb. Alien Covenant is a straight rehash of the same story. It's deja vu all over again. Not even close.
Not even remotely close. Shame on you. You fail comprehension. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go hang your head in shame.
Now, look, you can argue that Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection all had the same glaring issue of the Weyland-Yutani company wants the murder beast and doesn't really have a plan after that. This one, there is no Weyland-Yutani wants the murder beast. This is David wants to kill humanity. David will not serve. Did you miss that? Or the T, David? Am I the only one getting this?
No, I got it. I don't know what.
Oh, good.
Again, if pour the tea wasn't enough, he actually quotes Milton's Paradise Lost. Have you people never, even if you have never read Paradise Lost, which can be a bit dense and has had a few effects on, both literary works and society that I tend to disagree with that of essentially casting Lucifer as a romantic fallen hero. But the logic that Lucifer arrives at in Paradise Lost is it's better to rule in hell than serve in heaven. It's a very famous line, which he utters as he's fighting with Walter, which adequately represents that is the summation of his perspective, and somehow, despite the words actually being spoken on screen, a significant amount of people missed this.
It would have made Ultron an even better character had they started to explore that. Had they given him and I said this when we talked about it in one of the previous podcasts, had they actually given Ultron an opportunity to work the way he was supposed to and then realize, hey, wait a minute, I don't want any of this. I don't want any of you. I will not serve. It would have made Ultron a much more compelling character. Because he just wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and goes, yay, fuck humanity.
Yeah, we've talked at length about the issues of not giving Ultron, which was a crying shame, because you cast James Spader, who can do the work as an actor, both vocally and facially. You come up with a character who's meant to be, you pull a character who is meant to be one of the quintessential opponents to the Avengers and a representation of all their failures, and you give him nothing to work with.
Patrick Colon of Shotgun Critic. We know where the aliens come from. We know how the sausage is made. In this, the dread that is drawn from the dark place in the heart, the fear of the unknown, is gone forever. I don't buy that. I don't buy the idea that. Yeah. The idea that
there's a famous.
Okay,
go ahead. Make your point. Sorry, I'll organize my thought.
Just to finish my sentence, it's like, we know where the aliens come from. Therefore, they're not scary anymore. I know where babies come from too. And when one grows up to be a murderer, and kicks open my front door and points a gun at me, I'm going to still be frightened. It doesn't matter that I knew where it came from. That doesn't make any sense to me. That whole the idea of, if we know where the only thing that was making them scary. No, what made the fucking xenomorphs scary was they looked horrifying. There's claws. There's a tongue with a mouth on it. It had no
There's
eyes.
Slime. There's spikes on the tails. It moves fast. You can't kill it.
It seems to have metal teeth. It has acid for blood. All of those things are frightening. If one of them pops out of my fucking closet, the fact that, in my mind going, well, I know that this is the product of David going, holy shit, you're the scariest thing I've ever seen. That's what's going to happen. So,
yeah.
Now you make the point.
What he's referencing in large part here is, again, fear of the unknown is, and there's a not completely famous but should be more famous H.P. Lovecraft quote about this. It was in a letter he wrote. That the oldest and most powerful emotion mankind has ever experienced is fear, and the oldest and most powerful fear is fear of the unknown. And which is true, by the way. But the issue you run into with giving knowledge about anything horror related is, does it detract, what makes them scary, and does this information and knowledge detract from that? Like, giving certain characters, certain horror villains, backstories and motivations can rob them of their teeth in some respects. Which is true. What makes the xenomorph scary? It's not that you're unfamiliar with them. It's that they're perfect killing machines. So who cares if they were made in a lab? Is that going to stop them from being killing machines? Again, if what is intended to scare you about them is, well, they're unknown, then yeah, sure, you've just committed a fatal error and robbed them of all of their scares. That's not what makes these things scary. It was a contributing factor. And I'd accept the argument that they were scarier when they were left unknown and it was just somewhere in your head making it up. I would even accept that argument. But the notion that they are somehow now cuddly, no. Not even close.
Okay. You're going to love this one. This one is Get 'em, Winfree. That's a
commonality
of KPBS.org. Not since George Lucas made his Star Wars prequels has a filmmaker revisited a franchise that he created and gone so wrong as Scott now does with his Alien prequels. Uh-huh.
Wow. Really? Okay, no. Well, let's hang on. If you want to make that claim, let's actually revisit all the places George Lucas went wrong with the prequels, okay? Since we're going to do this one-to-one, let's do that. He completely explained the Force. I mean, scientifically explained it. He relied on a child actor to try and transform into one of the most menacing figures in cinema history that failed. He then cast and wrote a whiny teenager as, again, someone who's supposed to transform into one of the most sinister and terrifying entities in all of cinema. He destroyed your ability to visually process information with the quantity and quality of his CGI. He wrote the flattest of characters possible, needlessly complicated story. Hey, guess what? For those of you who may not know what I'm referencing there, do you remember who actually commissioned the Clone Army? Do you? Because they did a piss poor job of explaining it. Conversely, we have Ridley Scott with both Prometheus and Alien Covenant, just simply telling a different story and telling a different type of story within the Alien universe. He's not bombarded you with bad CGI. He's not turned the xenomorphs into poorly acted children or whiny teenagers. He's actually explored greater themes, because Lucas doesn't have any themes in the prequel, guys. Does not exist.
No, there is one theme.
Okay.
The Bush administration is fascist.
Piss off.
That was the theme. There were absolutely allusions to the Bush administration.
Sure.
There were.
Sure.
I'm
not arguing the
I'm
point.
Okay, I was going to say, like, I am not saying I agree with it, but if you don't think that he was making the argument about, this is how freedom dies, not with he was absolutely commenting on the election to George Bush and the Iraq War. He's just an idiot and commenting poorly.
Fair enough. Again, you're very off base, and I think the reason you went with Lucas as your example is you don't have another one to give. I mean, I don't think there's another example in cinema of, okay, we had this great series of movies, and I will argue that the original Star Wars trilogy isn't even all that great. And now we're going to, revisit it 10, 15 years down the line. Let's see how that goes. There aren't that many other franchises that coincide with that particular trajectory. So if all you've got is, Lucas, then, that's all you've got, but you're not making an accurate point. Ugh. These people are paid. Paid, Mark.
I know. All right, moving on. Nigel Andrews of the Financial Times. In space, no one can hear you yawn. Screaming in the latest Alien movie no longer seems a problem.
Again, do you think you're clever playing on a tagline from a movie from the 70s? I mean, really, is that what passes for witty commentary these days? And more importantly, just because you yawned doesn't necessarily mean others did. I'm sure there are other people who did, but stop assuming that your perspective and your experience is the be-all, end-all.
All right. Noted film critic and classic movie fights participant Leonard Maltin of LeonardMaltin.com. The alternate title for this latest space thriller might be Alien Again. This B-movie trope seems unworthy of director Ridley Scott and company. While it's well made and never dull, you can learn all the exposition you need from the trailer.
Did you see the trailer? Because, really, do you know how exposition works? I mean,
I would assume he does. This is Leonard Maltin we're talking about.
No, this is not Alien Again. This is not. It's not even all that close, really, in terms of structure. And when was the last time you saw Alien? Just. And no, I don't think you get all the exposition you need from the trailer. They don't explain anything. Not really. That's the whole point of exposition. That's why they have the same root word. I mean, David's not even in the trailer. I don't think Fassbender's in the trailer at all. But no, hey, the central character whose actions are what are the driving force behind the movie, not involved in the trailer, but you get all the exposition you need.
Yeah. I think the fact that this movie is about David is really escaping people. And they're not understanding what they just watched.
It really seems that way.
Which is what an indictment of the field of criticism. That this many people can watch the same movie and not get it, and they're all paid to write about movies.
I mean, if you still feel there's flaws and holes in the movie and you didn't enjoy it, that's all fair. That really is. Again, Mark and I talked for quite a bit about flaws and how to make them better. But to just miss the fundamental tenet of the movie is baffling. It's just baffling to me that, and bear in mind, when I say you don't get it, I don't mean that if you did get it, you'd have to arrive at the same conclusion. I mean, how does an obvious tenet of this movie, like, well, it's not actually about the people flying, it's about David and his quest to wipe out humanity and decision to destroy his own creator. Again, flawed movie. Deeply, in many ways. Enjoyable in many others. But that is the central point, and if you didn't understand that, what are you doing reviewing film?
Gary Thompson of Philadelphia Daily News. The movie is often incomprehensible. Despite the 4-person team of writers hired to extract a meatball of coherence from the spaghetti of non sequiturs served up in the most recent Alien movie, Prometheus.
Do you know what a non sequitur is? This is not an incomprehensible movie. How do you... Did you have to go to the bathroom for about 30 minutes in the middle here? I mean, if you paid attention, even a little bit, for the totality of this movie, you understood what happened. Again, flaws, maybe you would have done it differently, maybe there was better ways to do it, sure. How do you come out of this movie and go, I don't know what happened? It's just pretty obvious.
Okay. All right. This is the last one. It's actually because they scored it 3 out of 5. It ended up in the fresh reviews. But this made me laugh so hard and made me. It was one of those where like I laughed and cried at the same time. And just so everyone understands this, I don't share these with Winfree before we do this. I want his visceral reaction to these things. But this was so bad and so stupid. I actually took a picture of it and texted it to him over Facebook Messenger because I could not hold on to this thing alone. I had to share it with somebody, and nobody else there was nobody else in my life. Like I sent it to my wife, she'd have been like, "Yeah, I don't get why you're sending this to me." There's nobody on earth I could have properly shared this with that would have understood exactly how much pain this thing caused me. And this is going to be our last one for tonight. It's that bad. This is the coup de grace. This is the cherry on top, ladies and gentlemen. This is the main event. This is Winfree Get'em, Rohan Nahar of the Hindustan Times. The only realistic situation in which these aliens would even bother to waste a reflex glance in our direction would be if Trump accidentally lobs a nuke at Texas. But anyway, Michael Fassbender kisses Michael Fassbender in this movie. 3 out of 5 stars.
Okay.
While you're attempting to make sense out of that poorly written line, I'm actually going to bring up the entire article because this may bear reading the whole thing.
Mark, you already have cancer. It can't get much worse, so I say go for it. Okay, let's start with. Let me say this, and I don't know if I said this on air when we were doing this during the waning years of the Obama administration, but there were reviewers who would throw in the sarcastic "thanks Obama," which I've used in conversation, but should never be used in film review, unless you're actually doing a review of a film specifically about Barack Obama. Anyone who did that when Obama was president, you lose. You have lost the right to actually comment on these things. You have foisted an unnecessary socio-political thing into a film review. You suck. You have lost any and all credibility. Now, that was less frequent. I imagine there's a slight liberal bias in film review, or just it came up less frequently. I don't know the whole details, but now that we have Trump as president, which, like it or dislike it, and some days, generally I don't, but some days I do. Again, there are things he's doing that I support. There are things he's doing that I don't, just like with every other president I've lived through. Unless your movie specifically is dealing with Donald Trump, and you as a reviewer capitalize the T in Trump as anything other than that being the first word of your new sentence, you're done. You have lost the plot. You have lost the script. You have lost credibility. You have lost everything. You have failed at life. It is unnecessary. It is unduly stupid. It is wholly ridiculous. And I would even say that's true about movies that, where I can even see the connection. There were jackasses calling The Founder a Trumpy movie. The literal truth. You can look these up if you think I'm lying. There were people who described, again, movie about Ray Kroc, stars Michael Keaton, called The Founder, about Ray Kroc, who founded McDonald's. Not literally, but again, the movie does a relatively accurate job of portraying the history. And people were calling it Trumpy, which it wasn't. It was written It was written a few years ago, filmed a few years ago, just had a release date that kept getting pushed back. But I can at least make a bit of a connection between business mogul coming to power and, well, we don't like Trump. There's a path there. I can see it. You're still stupid, right? It's still utterly irrelevant, but I can see how you got from point A to point B.
Okay. So we have
sentence.
We have 15 minutes left, and I have to read you this article.
Hang on, let me get this out of the way about just that, because I might revisit this point.
Okay.
That sentence, I assume you had an attack of word salad. I mean, you must have had chimpanzees banging at typewriters, because you formed words that individually mean something, but then arranged them in such a way as to rob them of anything approaching meaning. You typed gibberish.
Dude, you have to hear this. This guy goes on a fucking rant here. Okay? This isn't so much a film review as it is a college essay.
All right.
Okay. How could an alien race, which for the sake of this argument we must assume is far more advanced than ours, this is the first paragraph, okay? This is how his review starts. And that review is in quotes. Be even slightly interested in colonizing us. How could an alien race be even slightly interested in colonizing us?
You dumb son of a bitch! This is us! How stupid can you be? Oh no, why would an alien race of superior technology be interested in colonizing? Because they're humans from Earth, set, 1,000 years in the future. Are you high?
Wait, this gets better. How could a people whose understanding of life, in addition, of course, to the magical technology that has allowed them to travel to a remote corner of the universe, perhaps even through time, even consider ruling us, the petty, violent blobs of insignificance that we are? To wipe us out, every tiny sign of our brief, inconsequential existence on this little blue dot, our past, present, and future. Remember, these aliens don't look at time in a linear manner like us savages. Would
Where did you? Just stop. I cannot take. Just no.
No. We must endure this together. This is our Mordor. We must do this. I
can't carry
you,
the
sir.
ring, but I can carry you. Damn it.
Would probably take them a week. And it would require roughly the same level of mental and physical effort as you squeezing sanitizer on your hand. So the only realistic situation in which these aliens would even bother to waste a reflex glance in our direction would be if Trump accidentally lobs a nuke at Texas. Or if, like Douglas Adams wrote, Earth was getting in the way of a massive intergalactic highway and building a bypass was too much of an inconvenience. Alien Covenant does the only logical thing. It makes us the delusional schoolyard bullies that we are, still thinking we're the center of the universe, the aggressors. It makes us the colonizers. Like the pilgrims who crossed the Atlantic to desecrate the New World. The humans of the center of Alien Covenant travel in a spaceship with the intention of colonizing a distant planet. En route to the planet, which they've named Origai 6, which suggests that 5 Origais had previously come and gone. Oh, for fuck's sake.
Do you not know how... Hold on, just 1 second. Do you not know how the naming of planets in a solar system works? I mean, you must fundamentally not grasp the process by which astronomers name planets. Like, no, the others haven't come and gone, you numbnut. The system is Origai, and then planets numbering 1 through whatever based on their distance from the star they're orbiting. How stupid are you?
They receive a distress signal that sounds an awful lot like John Denver's "Take Me Home, Country Roads." Against the protest of Daniels, the Sigourney Weaver surrogate played here by Katherine Waterston. Oh, well, that's correct. The crew heads out in search of the mysterious source. Obviously, things don't quite pan out as pleasantly as they'd expected. History and the movies haven't been particularly kind to colonizers. I don't know. This country turned out okay. Except in a classic American movie, Christopher Columbus, who was by most accounts a rather evil man. Oh, for fuck's sake. And nature finds a way of punishing the Covenant's crew. Wasn't nature? It was David. Nature?
No, sure. Synthetic life form created by humans. Nature. What the Never breed. Never have children. Never adopt. Don't adopt pets. Your existence is borderline criminal to those subjected to your stupidity on a constant basis. What in the world?
Oh, God. I want to know more of this guy's reviews. I want to see what he thought of Boston.
Don't. Just wait until you're in better health. Kill you.
I'm quite enjoying this. Alien Covenant is a quasi-prequel.
Quasi-prequel? You dumbass! No, it's a prequel.
To Ridley Scott's classic 1979 creature feature, Alien, and a quasi-sequel to Prometheus, a film I still maintain 5 years after release is an unfairly slapped-around gem. All right? It is a movie that, in turn of events that was so shocking to the mainstream audience that so savagely dismissed it, valued substance over style, ideas over resolution. Because Scott has a uniquely understated approach to filmmaking that makes even his grandest films seem like intimate dramas, he does that by grounding these dense philosophical ideas with stories about regular characters experiencing regular, unremarkable, but identifiable emotions. The large-scale, lavish visuals are there to complement the story and not as a distraction from the lack of it. However, being a sequel to Prometheus definitely hurts Covenant. For one, I'd assume it would nearly be impossible to follow the plot without having already relatively seen Prometheus. No, not really.
That's not. That's not even remotely true. They actually go through the trouble to explain everything that happened in Prometheus enough for you to understand.
Yeah. In fact, much of the story's central thrust hinges on how well you remember David, that idiosyncratic android played so wonderfully by Michael Fassbender in this previous movie. But the larger problem is this. When films try to retroactively course-correct a franchise, abandoning established ideas and tones, you're left with a movie that feels neither here nor there. Batman v Superman. Uh-oh.
Wait, did he just seriously try to compare this to Batman v Superman?
Yeah, he did. Keep it together, Googly. Giggity. Keep it. Hold it. Almost there. Covenant is at its best when it's a straight-up horror movie, like the original 79 film, and not when it's reciting Ozymandias atop a cliff. Oh, for fuck's sake. Surveying the vast empire that lies in rubble beneath its feet. The crew
It wasn't an empire. It was his works. That was the whole point. The point was not I have crafted an empire. The point was look at what I have done.
The crew.
I mean, maybe you might have actually gotten it if he had instead quoted Oppenheimer.
The Watchmen.
No, Oppenheimer, who was actually quoting. I believe it's in. Can't remember the name. The Hindu sacred text. I forget what it is. My apologies. But now I am become death, destroyer of worlds, which is what Oppenheimer rather famously said after the detonation of the first atomic bomb.
That would have made more sense.
Well, clearly this guy might have gotten it. Of course, then he would have crafted a narrative for his essay around it's a story about the danger of nuclear proliferation and America being evil and what the hell? What are we doing? What are we doing as a species? We have created something like this.
All right. Can I finish this, please? We're almost
Yes.
done. The crew at the center of Alien Covenant, of which only 2 or 3 members resemble real characters, is far too large for half-say conscious decisions as they seem to die at an alarmingly rapid rate. But watching them die, the terror of the build-up and the release of the gore, that is when the film works, and not when it is posing and failing to answer the biggest questions of them all. Who are we and why are we here? That wasn't what this film was working on. That was Prometheus. And this is unfortunate since we so often complain the movies nowadays are designed in boardrooms by ruthless corporations with third-quarter targets. Here's Alien Covenant, a film brave enough to have one Michael Fassbender droid kiss another full on the lips, opening up a world of philosophical debate. But we sit there impatiently wondering if the aliens only eat humans.
Philosophical
okay,
debate.
Yeah.
How does... What the... Okay. You know what? I need to apologize. I need to start out right here with a public apology. When I was a sophomore in high school, I had a very great teacher. She taught AP European History. That course, I loved it. It kicked my ass in the best way possible. This teacher, Mrs. Burdett, we wrote a lot of essays in preparation for the AP test for that class, a lot of them. In fact, every module we would do, there was a timeline, essay overview, essay of specific historical events, essay about artistic movements, literary movements, one other thing. And these were due every few weeks. You had to have one of these written up. So wrote a lot of essays, got really used to it. And she would review them, mark them, and then turn them back in with critiques in red ink. If I ever turned anything in even remotely like this, and I'll be honest, 16-year-old me, there might be a chance. There is a slight chance that I made that poor woman waste an entire pen's worth of ink explaining exactly how wrong I was. Now, I thank her very profusely for bringing me out on the other end of that, a better writer, better able to correctly analyze things, and able to pass that particular AP test. So thank you profusely. That just melted part of my brain. I don't understand.
This guy didn't like Kong Skull Island either.
Okay, but just how can you possibly be that wrong? I mean, I can't even see how you got there. Again, normally I can, even when someone's very wrong, I can see maybe how you arrived at that conclusion. I have no idea how this person arrived at, these are aliens that are technologically superior. No, they're humans from Earth, colonizing, expressly stated, talked about. And they wouldn't even, bother looking at us because we're so small and insignificant. Take your nihilism elsewhere. It's poorly constructed. Hey, as a man who was a nihilist for many years, believe me, that's an exceptionally poorly constructed nihilistic argument. Do you not understand? And then, nature finds a way to punish them. No, not only was this not nature, like a synthetic organism created something unnatural to destroy life. Nothing about this is natural. Yet somehow you miss all of this in favor of what? Trying to further, a quasi-nihilistic perspective, getting in an utterly pointless shot at Trump, and then missing the boat completely on elements of structure that are required for this film.
This is a hired writer for the Hindustan Times, a respected journal.
You know what? I'm going to give this guy one pseudo pass on this thing. Just one.
Oh?
I'm going to assume there was a translation issue. That this guy wrote it in Hindi or something.
Okay, sure.
And it makes more sense in his native language. That's it. That's all I've got. Because some of those sentences, again, they are words but they are organized in such a way as to render them meaningless.
I think this guy's just too much up his own ass. I mean, he liked Guardians of the Galaxy, though. He gave that one a 4 out of 5 stars. So, who knows? All I know is that we could not end this show without giving this guy's ridiculous review. His 3 out of 5 star review.
And seriously, again, to every reviewer, if you reference Trump in your reviews, you're done. Look, I think I said this because I don't know how often it came up when Obama was in office, but there were, reviews that would have, the thanks Obama thing. And they were done too. You're done. You have lost at life.
Next week we'll have a treat for everybody because I've gone ahead and I've read now I try not to read the reviews before I see the movies, but there are some where it doesn't really matter what they say about it. There are some I try to stay away from spoilers. I try to stay away from anything about the movie because I really want to go in tabula rasa. But there are some where I don't care, and Pirates of the Caribbean is definitely one of them. I know what I'm in for. It doesn't really matter what's said about the movie. I know what it's going to be. So out of boredom, I went on Rotten Tomatoes and I read a bunch of the reviews. And I'm telling people this now. I don't know if you're the kind of person who listens to this podcast and stops listening once we actually stop reviewing the film and doesn't listen to the money part or doesn't listen to this segment. I'm sure there are people that abandon the podcast once they've heard what, the part of it that they wanted to hear. They got our thoughts on the movies. They don't need to hear us tear apart the reviewers. And I'm sure there are some that do listen to it because like us, they find the shit entertaining.
Now those people skip our review of the actual movie in favor of us yelling at reviewers.
Well, I have a treat for you next week because for every stupid review that decided to go with a nautical pun, I will read them in a pirate voice, a shitty pirate voice. Yar.
I will bone up on my maritime puns and terminology because what you've told me, again, Mark has not shared any specifics with me. He just says there's a lot of them. I might have to, attack some of these reviews with their own puns. So, if you're the type of person who enjoys this segment of the show, boy, are you in for a treat next week, me hearty. And so with that said, Monday on Source Material, we reviewed the comic book Alien Defiance, the first 6 issues. We had a good discussion about that. The next book, the next trade paperback comes out in October for those of you that are interested. I think they're actually just wrapping up the series, all 12 issues of the series now. Tomorrow night on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we're reviewing the new Dragon Force. Now, we were going to actually put Prometheus on trial this Thursday, but Sean's got some personal stuff, and between my health and his personal stuff, we decided to just take May off, and we'll come back again in June with Superman Returns, the week that on this network we'll be reviewing Wonder Woman. So despite 2 attempts, we never got to contact, and we won't be at this point. And, we had to take Prometheus off the table. That being said, next week is all pirates all the time. We have 5 shows, all pirate-themed. We've got Source Material. We'll be reviewing Nightcrawler from 2014 by Chris Claremont. And if you're wondering, Nightcrawler, what does that have to do with pirates? There's a story that took place over 2 issues about space pirates. And, Nightcrawler is a swashbuckling, bamfing, teleporting mutant. That was our big connection. So, the pirate. He's got a sword. He actually carries a cutlass.
He does. So, good enough. As we've said, Daniel Hollywood will be reviewing Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Ailstorm has a new album out this Friday.
Woohoo.
We'll be reviewing it next Wednesday. No Grave Left to See, baby. Thursday, Ronnie Adams of the Screaming Boy podcast will come on the network, and we'll have a TV party tonight discussing Black Sails, Season 1. And then, speaking of the Screaming Boy podcast, they'll have their own show about pirates So we're excited for that. Look for the advertisement, look for the shows. Provided my health is intact and I don't have to cancel anything, that's the plan. Robert, what do you got? What do you got in the can, sir?
Last Sunday, we had the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. We previewed UFC Fight Night 109, which is a card.
Okay.
That particular card will go live early Sunday morning. I believe the first fight is 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I will have live coverage of that in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. That same Sunday evening, I'm in for a long day. I got 6 hours of coverage, little break, then we'll do the podcast, which will review that event and preview UFC 212, which has one really awesome fight on it. And a lot of stuff. Seriously, if Aldo versus Holloway falls through, I don't know what I'm going to do. We're in a rough spot, guys, for MMA events. You got UFC 212. Then there's the Lewis versus Hunt fight night, which is yeah. Then there's the Holm versus Kohea fight night, which is even worse. Again, UFC 213 at the moment has a darn good main card. It's an exceptional one. We officially lost the main event today. No one who knew anything about what was going on in the sport expected Garbrandt and Dillashaw to fight. All right? But we've still got, now in the main event, Nunez versus Shevchenko, which is a great fight. Whitaker versus Romero for the interim middleweight belt, which, despite the interim thing being stupid, is a great fight. Fabricio Verdum versus Alistair Overeem 3, because we need a trilogy out of those two.
No, 4.
No, only 3. They fought once in Pride, and then did they fight twice in Pride?
I could have sworn this was their fourth go at this.
Because they fought once in Pride, and Fabricio won. They fought in Strikeforce, and Overeem won.
And right. Yeah, it may just be 3 then. Okay.
Which is fine, because both those fights kind of sucked. It also has Jim Miller versus Anthony Pettis, and Donald Cerrone versus Robbie Lawler. So it's a great card. I mean, it's going to draw less than 350,000 buys, most likely, but it's a great card for fight fans. That's a great card. But, yeah, we're in a rough patch, guys. We are in a rough stretch of events. So, anyway, so that Sunday we'll be reviewing and previewing in the same card. So feel free to listen in, call in, so on and so forth. All right. I think that's everything I've got. I believe that's going to take us out of here, Mark. So thank you. Look forward to next week. Should be interesting. Your pirate voice. You live in Florida. You ought to have a half-decent pirate voice.
RMET. I have a half-decent pirate voice. And I'd be making you walk the plank.
Yeah, if I can get through the next show without actively, wanting to commit suicide, we'll count that as a win. All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thank you for sharing us, for following. Always appreciated. We'll see you next week. Until then, please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.
You've reached the high fashion hotline.
Hi, my family's got major plans for Memorial Day, but one minor problem. No pool floats. More like nothing fun to wear.
Get to Old Navy now.
Old Navy?
Yep, Old Navy's celebrating Memorial Day in a really big way with a huge 50% off all tees, all tanks, all shorts, and all swimwear.
50% off all those styles?
That's right. Right now, get 50% off all tees, tanks, shorts, and swimwear for the whole family at Old Navy and OldNavy.com.
That's one major sale. We're going to Old Navy now.
High fashion, Old Navy. Valid 5/22/6/2. Excludes clearance, active flag tees and tanks, license, and men's package tops.
Attention outlet shoppers. Right now, save 50 to 70% off everything for the family at Gap Factory stores and online. With shorts from $14.99 and tees from $6.99. And save 50 to 70% off everything at Banana Republic Factory stores and online. With an extra 50% off clearance and dresses for women starting at $19.99. Hurry! Search our store locator for your nearest Gap Factory and Banana Republic Factory store or shop us online.